Hit the button, Doomcock.
Oh, sure thing, Dr. F.
Hello. My name is Bruce, and this is my Only Hands account. With me tonight is Baron G Rock, Chimerian Connell, the Cigar DM, and Shadow from the Shadow and Son channel. And a really good channel if you like father-son crafting videos. I'm just saying, it's the best on YouTube. Okay. Thank you for that coin, Mr. Shadow. And now that we discussed that, Jade will not be with us tonight. He's over in, I believe, Indy. Is he over in Indianapolis? Yeah. He's celebrating this week the biggest RPG convention in the world. And he's going to have fun with that. I hope he does.
One would say it's a Nerdvana.
I wouldn't go that far. It's not North Texas RPG Con, but
yeah. Okay. But if I was doing a in-con Gen Con in Texas, it would have to be in Waco. I heard get-togethers there goes up in flames.
God damn
Send in the tanks. All right. Now we've given you a 1990s PTSD moment. Today's topic,
why we can't have nice things?
Because we're poor. We're too poor to Indy. That's why we don't have nice things.
My bad. We won't have it there. We would have it at Ruby Ridge. Because at least the government knows how to use it at the front door.
Fuck you.
Okay. Moving on.
Nothing about tasteless. Thank you.
Hey, Raven. Hey, Mage's Musings. Hello, Six Nations.
Raven, how you feeling? Long time no see.
Kai, you're just mad I beat you it
in our chat.
What's that? No.
We're going to discuss the topic magic and psionics. And as Bruce, I'm just going to say I hope we can discuss this in a manner that benefits other tables, because there are games where both coincide in the same universe, the same multiverse, and they work really well together. They pair off each other like wine and cheese. As much as I hate Pathfinder 2nd Edition, I do like the fact that they do give psionics its due. And they give it its big due in Starfinder, which was just announced for 2nd Ed.
I know,
but go ahead.
I know 5th Edition took a tackle at psionics, and I heard it's supposed to be a whole lot more balanced than it has in the past. But for
yes.
What?
Oh, yes. Balance has been a key issue in every iteration of it when it's placed into an existing framework with an already existing magic system. But go ahead.
Listen, I'm one of those players where I'm like, hey, I want to be Professor X. DM says, go fuck yourself. So, it's not something I'm used to,
For sake of brevity, I'm probably not going to ask Kai what he thinks about it right now, because I want him to have an opportunity to absorb other people's experiences before he gives his own. Otherwise, this will be a rather red $ affair on the YouTube studio for me, and I don't want that.
Stop inviting me that if you want green $sign.
I need you here to react. I need you here to react, and then we'll go. You'll be the last one I queue up for your experience with it, because you've had some Ravenloft-esque style experiences with psionics in your game.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're not the DM to ask hey, Kai, can I be
I'm going to go to Kai last. I'm not saying you can't react.
Yeah. What do you want to know?
I'm in a playful mood. I want to apologize to everybody on the panel. I'm in one of my moods.
Oh, this will end fun.
Well, if I remember right, and Shadow would be the only one that would actually have been able to play under its official banner when it was released in first edition, AD&D. Because me, Kai, we were in our teen years, and I don't know, Kai, did you play a lot of first edition or no?
I was at tail end of first.
In the second?
We were tail end of first and mostly second. So
okay. And the core rule books for Player's Handbook DMG had psionics rules in them. It was hard coded. It was hard coded right there. And about every existing adventure and campaign supplement published in that variety of time, in this huge span of time from 76 to 87, maybe 2 or 3 of them had psionic items in there. Everything else, it was barren. Okay, nobody paid attention to these rules.
They were primarily really a way to mess with your players, a la mind flayers, intellect devourers, thought eaters, things like that, because only roughly 3 in 100 characters would ever qualify to gain psionics, and most DMs just omitted that fact and then didn't really give you a chance to roll, and then you would just bump into a mind flayer and he would eat your face, then your brain, if not wear you around as a skin suit. So it was really just a way to kind of mess with players in a way they literally had no defenses against for the most part. You could run away if you smelled a mind flayer or saw one, you just ran because there was nothing you could do unless you really read your player's handbook and then went, hey, Mr. GM, can I roll for psionics? And he'd be like, yeah, sure. You've got a 3 or a 4, maybe on the off chance, a whole 5% chance of having psionics, and then you could work it. If you did your homework, read your book, studied up on when and where and how you could use psionics, and mind you, there were a few players I had. Go for it, Kai.
And because of that ridiculously small chance that everyone could be a potential psionic if you just roll properly. But don't worry, the odds are stacked against you. So that one person who gets to have the 3% chance of becoming a psionic character becomes suddenly, we're all like, since we already have the garbage of linear progression, so martial character is on flat trajectory of power increase. Wizard already had, and caster already has exponential spike of awesomeness as game progresses to the point of you, and then suddenly you have that one player who rolls the 3%, and now they are all, the spike becomes immediate. It's just a vertical line that goes up from that point forward of just amazing, awesome super character, because there was a way of doing psionics for every, like, it wasn't just simply what is your primary stat. No, every stat could potentially be your primary awesome, badass super stat, and you were amazing at everything. It was like, wow, why are the rest of us here? Because obviously Mind Melter Mick Psychic Butt over there is able to be the most awesome person in the entire world and has power that nobody can resist. Fuck yeah. And he's like, but it's the rules said I'm amazing.
Well, it wasn't quite that skewed in favor of the psionic. You did have points, you had limited abilities, etc. But you're right. If you got the right stuff, absolutely.
But the thing is that unlike, say, Wizard, where we had some control as a GM to say, no, you can't have those spells, or hey, your god says no to the spell list you chose, or whatever, the Poison Ivy says no to your druid spells. if you chose your right power, like, oh no, they have a certain limited number of power points. The wizard is like, I only have 5 spells. What do I got? And meanwhile,
well, you didn't really get to choose your powers unless I think you rolled like the 99 or 100 or something to that equivalent. But
I know, but
right.
it was so easy to abuse the hell out of psionics. At least in the first second, it was so easy to abuse it to the point where every GM looks at. So when the power players go, "Can we roll psionics?" If you were a smart GM, you said no, because on a 3%, now he's a class, but also has superpowers, and you're like, and he can also read minds or bend reality or warp things. Well, I don't have control of my powers. So by random act of God, you could actually by random act of dice, you are now the most powerful creature in the entire universe.
Especially if you rolled up probability travel, which was essentially the ability to travel like an amberite. Wow, yeah. Okay, we're leaving this world. We're going to the one where I'm king.
Yeah, it's like, this campaign sucks. We're going to something better, and you leave. And wait, what? This campaign's over. We've all chosen to leave this campaign. We're going to play our character somewhere else that's better. What? Or it's like, I'm a wizard. I'm an evocation wizard. And he goes to the fighter who rolls his psionic powers, right? And I also cast fireball too. Wait, what? Boom! Yeah.
It can happen.
Yeah, it happened way more often than I would like. And trust me, whenever anyone's like, psionics are rare. Yeah, dice say otherwise.
Yeah. You gotta watch your players' die rolls, and they have to call high before they even touch the damn dice.
Or high or low or whatever the hell they're doing. And I've watched, and we've been like, are you really cheating? I'm going to watch it. And then they roll it, and then you watch it, and suddenly you now have, and of course, nobody else has it. Everybody else has to play boring, bland characters, and then the one god character who's now walking around going, and I now know the future. What? I can. I'm powerful. And so having that wonderful gated. Well, I guess we're gonna play a real campaign. No one rolled right, and then we're gonna play a good campaign. And then one guy goes, I rolled God. I'm invincible. You're all crap. Peasants, support me, for I have powers that the GM can't stop.
Well, the GM can stop by throwing in,
I know.
But
the thing is, what stops a psionic character? It will, so you stop the psionic character, and then that character, and then that monster proceeds to brain rape everybody else in the party because they've got no defenses, and they're almost like, we are utterly defenseless and now and completely useless compared to the threat that knocked out our psionic character. Oh, or you have the Shadowrun problem of now. Well, this threat is only for the psionic character, and everybody else sits over there. If any of you get involved in this, I will crush you. And then you have the villain crush the psionic character and then leave. The rest of the party goes, why are we here again? Why didn't we just watch 45 minutes of this table encounter happen? Because I needed to punish the psionic character. Oh, okay. And yeah,
I tended to have something like, for lack of a better term, a Jedi Academy or some psychic institute or guild or club or whatever you want to call it in place in the world that would, kind of put the rules and regs out for the side character so that they understood, hey, you start abusing these powers, you're going to not only attract mind flayers and all the other monsters, as well as every single demon in the book, but you're also going to attract our ire. And, when the townsfolk try to pitchfork and torch your ass, we won't be there to back you up.
I know, but this is just another case of I encountered it too many times growing up that of the bad side of this and never seeing the good side. It's like when you have a good solid like almost 5.5 years of this is what you're encountering all the time.
Yeah, sorry to hear that, man.
And the only time it ever turned out to be fun was when we played Dark Sun, which is an automatically unfun campaign, which we played once and then probably said this is an abomination that goes right back into the bin next to a certain other campaign that we don't talk about much, but we hate
Hey,
it.
Kai, thank you. You just gave me an idea for one of my next videos.
What? Games that go back to the dumpster?
No. You'll have to wait till next Tuesday. Is that giving away too much?
Okay.
But yeah, I know what I'm doing next Tuesday.
Okay.
See, the one thing I really like that they did well was actually in the 40K RPG games with the Psychers, because yes, they were powerful, but there was an opportunity that they would tear a hole into the void. So yes, great big power. I'm not going to use it because I don't want to get sucked into the void and have, evil, chaotic things come out and destroy me.
It's one thing when you're a wild mage and you use fancy and magic systems, so you might have like 10 spells a day, right? So that's maybe up to 10 rolls a day where you have the chance to like cast Feeble Mind on yourself. But it's another thing when you're a psyker and you might have multiple instances of your funness every day, more than 10, and each one of them can tear a hole through the fabric of space-time continuum.
Yes.
See, that's a little too much negativity. It's like, why even bother if you're going to do that? Compared to
the only thing is with that is if you roll something with a 9.
Yes.
Anything else, you're fine. It's only if you roll a 9 on the it's a percentile. So if you roll something with a 9, like 29, 39, 49, etc., that's when the hole tears. So I mean, you have a 10% chance theoretically for it to happen.
Well, with Warhammer Fantasy, even using normal magic,
because you have all of the 90s plus everything else with a 9.
Well, okay, so a 20% chance.
As I was saying, even with Warhammer Fantasy, if you're playing a wizard, you still have a chance of ripping a hole into the void and having Mr. Tentacle himself come out and say howdy.
That's because Warhammer Fantasy is pretty much worse.
See, I'm used to playing so many games like Chill, Dark Conspiracy, Palladium's games where, even in like a regular Earth situation like Dark Conspiracy or Chill, when psionic things happen, it's not like that devastating, a repercussion just for using your abilities. It's just this is your version of magic or martial arts or what have you, that you can just do your stuff. You're going to get tired, you're going to get the nosebleeds, etc. But then when you up at a level in so many other games, the punishment for just using your God-given powers, so to speak, just the danger percentage just goes up exponentially. I never understood that. Why do you think that is? Oh, Cyworld, that's the game.
If you're thinking about, like, if you're looking at the Warhammer, it comes with the lore. Just for the simple fact of chaos lives in the void, and you tear a hole into the void, you're going to let the chaos in. So they're supposedly, you're trained in order to not do that. But, spur of the moment, you're like, oh crap, and all of a sudden, uh-oh. It's kind of one of those. It's kind of one of those oh shit moments of uh-oh.
You are now Slanesh's pet toy. Congratulations.
I'm going to go back to like systems I know, or at least realms of DMing I'm comfortable with. Hey, Jade. Jade.
What's up,
is Psionics even worth having in if you're doing a fantasy-based campaign? Is it even worth having in, or do you just bite the bullet and say no off the bat and just move on with your life?
Well, it depends.
Yes.
If you're uncomfortable and you can't handle it, it's no different than banning the wish spell or fireballs, okay? But if you want to try something new, what's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to have yet another game fall apart. How many of us have had games that have fallen apart? Hundreds of times, probably.
It's
Right.
status quo to the situation. I get that.
Take a chance. What's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to, melt your brain?
What are you going to say, guys?
See, with me, when you're looking at like a fantasy type game, I will ask the table one way or the other. Do you want magic or do you want psionics? And I will tailor the world around that. For the simple fact of I have an issue with both in a game. Just for the simple fact of, you're looking at, I'm going to use like Max's that he talks about with Heathen Dog. Where, a 12th level character takes out, an oh my God, big bad that is a 20th level that it shouldn't happen, but it did. And, it's something the power curve of magic is one thing. But when you start throwing the psionics in there, that power curve changes drastically. So
right, but what better way to learn your own shortcomings? If your players, beat the big bad, you should applaud them. But you should also take stock in how they did it, and next time learn from it and become better. Not just keep saying, "Well, I can't do that because my players are always going to beat it," and then maybe you need to kind of go back to school and learn how to be a little better. Your players are always, not always, but more often than not, they're going to beat the things you throw at them. So, don't take it personally and use it as an opportunity, as a gauging system. Okay, well, this monster had all this stuff and they beat it. Okay, how do I bump that kind of an encounter up to be, more challenging? Because, any group of players that have gotten their characters up to like 8th, 9th level have already kicked the crap out of almost everything you've tossed their way. Well, now it's time to, pump things up a little and maybe, send them packing for once because, oh no, I overcompensated and I threw something at you that you guys couldn't beat. Well, yeah, that's supposed to happen more often than not, wouldn't you say?
Well, the thing is, too, it also depends on what you're wanting to do within the campaign. Because there are campaigns out there where psionics don't fit it. It just doesn't.
The same as, how many games are super low magic. It all depends on the setting and the desire of everybody at the table. That session 0 social contract issue. If you guys all want to run a sword and sandals, almost no magic, and magic eats your face off, cool. But if you've got a whole bunch of people that are really itching for something, let's just call it what it is, gonzo. Well, either you're up for the challenge, or maybe it's one of their turns to GM. And maybe you, as a former Eternal GM, can stick it to them with some of the things you've been holding back up here.
Nah, if I want to go gonzo, I'll just throw Toon out there and we'll have fun.
I was about to say, could you have a campaign that has both magic?
I just mentioned Toon this morning.
Yes.
Good for you.
All right.
Good for you.
Kai, you look like you're going to explode.
I mean, as a Mage the Ascension player, I understand immensely because that game is all about, it's called Mage, but depending on how you fluff it, build it, and work it, because that game is built around the idea of paradigm, which is your magic is like how you perceive your magic is how things work, and how you interface with your spheres leads into how your magic works. So you could definitely fluff your powers out to being psionic powers, since you're actually using all your essence. It looks like, it sounds like, because of how you describe it, how you run it, it's like psionics. But yes, you can and as much as I have had bad experiences with psionics, I know the fundamentals enough to go, if I could find a GM who could pull it off properly and not have it be a Palladium game, because And I love Palladium. I love Rifts. Boy, does it got problems, and I love it, so I can admit that it's got problems.
Right.
I don't.
Well, admitting there's a problem is, the first step.
The first step of rebuilding it, and I don't want to rebuild Rifts because Rifts is a crazy game that I love to death, but it's not. But I'm not going to run it anymore. All Palladiums is a game that I look at every once in a while and go, "You are worth my weight in paper and newspaper. Congrats!" And it's a good game, but it's not for me anymore.
Yep. It's funny how that worked out, huh? I mean, I've got 50 books sitting here on my bookshelf of Palladium, and I can't even contemplate playing it again.
The thing is that to tell you how I when I sold my Palladium collection, I sold it by the pound, not by the book, but by the pound. We literally went over to a weigh station, dropped the tote, and then weighed out all of my collection, and he paid me the $120. I said $1 a pound. And he sold me I sold him 120 pounds of Palladium books. Yeah,
Wow, I didn't even double that, but okay.
Well, I know.
Look, I know you got more than me. Congratulations. I understand this. Congratulations for being a far bigger collector than I did. But when I finally sold all of my Palladium shit, that's how much it weighed. And I don't. It's like, so I was invested in this game at one time. So
clearly,
but I do know that psionics can be done. It can be interesting, and it can be like if I could ever find, I could run a game where yes, I can make I can make psionics and magic fun, but I don't want to run it I don't want to run that anymore. I would like play it, but I understand that. But I understand that the moment I try to, the closest I'm going to get to psionics that will be interesting as magic will actually be either exalted, which depending on how you fluff it, boy, essence powers drawing from internal essence sounds a lot like psionic powers, which is just superpowers. Congratulations, it's just psionic energy or cool physical energy causing cool effects. Yay, cool. And then magic's its own weird system, and I love it. Or it's going to be something really interesting and somebody else is going to run it and I'll enjoy it. But my biggest fear is it's going to be playing Star Wars D6 and we common peasants don't do anything, and the guy who has 3 dice in control, 3 dice in alter, and 3 dice in sense wins everything because he manages to have all his powers set up just right, and we poor peasants are here to provide fire support for yonder Death Knight with laser weapons and psionic powers, and we all just kind of go, "Yay! Our hero has arrived." Don't worry, not I worry not, peasant players. You are inferior to me, or we all live in terror because we're all playing Dark Heresy Warhammer Fantasy Battles, and the Psyker. I'm going to cast a spell. Run, everybody! Just run away.
The closest I can get to in my head, this is this is probably not everybody else. This is very much in my head, but the closest way I can explain it to myself in a Pathfinder D&D fantasy, even modern fantasy, but modern fantasy is you got Michael, who's a paladin, you got Harry Dresden, who's a wizard, then you have Molly Carpenter, who is uses mind magic, so she uses that kind of she's psionic.
Yeah.
Is that the best example, or is there a better one? Because that's the one I'm latching on to.
Hey,
psionic is the most generic term.
Well, more so, she is more, and spoilers, everyone, if you've not read the series, but you've had time. He is more Fey touched at this point than it is actually psionics.
I'm talking about earlier.
Her early stuff felt like it was enchantment and illusion mixed together.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
illusion is mind magic. I mean, it might not be. I don't know.
No.
Phantasms of
Because she can go into somebody's
phantasms.
brain. She can literally go into somebody's brain and mess things about. That's psionic.
When she had the illusion of the mind being sketched out like a Federation starship crewed by only other Mollies with the little TOS short skirts and thick thighs running around the boat, I knew she was a phantasm specialist. Sorry. They got it right.
Except for Shadow, I was just trying to use a medium that we all know. Most of us have read 90% of the books.
Well, I mean, the medium that we all know is, of course, Jean Grey, Charles Xavier.
I'm trying to. I mean, yes, those are probably the easiest examples.
They're good examples.
They're great examples. They are.
Charles Xavier is Professor X is the greatest example of psionics, period. Because of being able to make an entire world in someone's brain that they don't even know that they're in.
Yeah.
Cerebro.
I would also go with the God Emperor of Dune also being a pretty good example of what a psionic could be without,
That's a good one, Kai.
Aren't they in for another? Because I've seen the RPG system actually earlier this week, a Judge Dredd RPG, and they seemed a couple of the classes, a class in there looked like it felt like it was iconic, where the person could read, where they could read minds to see if they all are psychotic.
Well, but, and another example is if you watch Babylon 5, Bester.
The whole side was so well done.
Yeah, so well done. This whole Psy-Core, those are psionicists. To the core.
I was a big fan. I'm a big fan of the X-Men movies. I know you guys are going to say like, "Wow, you're such a basic Bruce," but yeah,
they are what they are.
The movies are really easy and accessible to get into, and when you start looking at various things Professor X does, he is the atypical super psychic, and I really appreciate as much as he's not part of the quote unquote the TSR WotC fan club. I really appreciate what they did with him in the comics, because when I read comics, I can always say like, "Oh, this is this power. Oh, this is this power. Oh, this is this power." And I think the designers of the psionic systems for about every edition of D&D that matters, and I want to say that's probably up to 4th. I want to say those guys did a lot of reading of X-Men, and then they went and did other better things, got away from it. They a lot of them went, and probably freelanced with Kevin Simbada or did some things with CJ Corella, and that made that into the Palladium system. Palladium, it always feels like the psionics feel so much different than magic. Psionics always feel like it's either it's a physical adept move where they're self-buffing, or literally they're just singling out one individual and trying to cause that person like to have their brain bleed out their nose. And that's fine. That's all the psionics that I usually need. I don't need much more than that.
Well, they're, like Rifts and I want to say Beyond the Supernatural, they had some abilities that would, do the Lita sort of, mass effect, affecting large groups of people. But, we had talked about this before. They really should be different. Yes, magic can emulate psionics, and maybe if you want to look at it the right or wrong way, vice versa. But there really should be a very definitive, this is this category and this is this category to begin to try to integrate it in your system. Go for it, Kai.
My one counter to this is because of the fact that we have so many varieties of what's considered magic. It's I almost want to pull this joke scene from the Venture Brothers where where it was, it's like, I can control fire, and then it pulls out a lighter. It goes like, I can too, and it's like one of those. And
I knew you were going to pull that.
I know.
One thing.
So it's like, what are you? I can cast pyromancy. I'm a pyrokinetic, lightning bolt, electrokinetic. I can cast, enchantment. I can do mind control. And eventually, it's like, how many powers do you just eventually go? This is a problem I also have with just D&D Magic in particular. Where it's like this is a spell that wizard, cleric, bard, sorcerer, warlock, witch, and at this point, do we even have a distinct definition between what is a type of spell? If every spellcasting class can cast these, why do we have so many distinctions between all the various forms of magic when it literally just comes down to everybody and their dog either has that spell or that effect with some with some sparkly flavor thrown onto it, where it's just like, so how are you casting your spell? God lets me do it. I know some runes. My bloodline, dad fucked an imp. Now I can cast magic. I ate some berries. I have some magic. Or if I give myself a migraine, I can make you explode.
Well, Kai, you know what? You just made me think of something.
Yeah.
In throughout actual Earth history, everything was considered magic. Okay, yeah. It wasn't until maybe the 1800s or later that when science started becoming more of a real thing, did people even contemplate that things that were psionic were anything other than some sort of gift of the devil or sorcery or something like that. You could very easily use that as your justification. Sure, you may have psionics, but everybody's going to think you're a witch or something like that, and just explain that the brain, as it were, has yet to evolve to actually be able to do the psychic stuff.
And at that point, I'm okay with that. But at that point, the mechanics become, to use almost that math thing, you simplify the equation, and it becomes nearly identical. My problem is that when you detach psionics and make it its own complete separate thing that has its own different saves and its own different ways and functions, to the point where it's an entirely alien system that barely fits with all the other mechanics. So it's either going to be its own thing over here, and it's either way overpowered, overbalanced, or underpowered, and because it's like different ways, like its own mechanics becomes cumbersome or terrible, or it's just
like
yet another flavor of magic. And
so you're basically recommending that it be baked into the game system from the very beginning.
It has to be baked. It has to be baked in, and it has to be integrated in with the game, so that way it doesn't feel like it's just been a glued on aftermarket. So you're not buying your 2008 Honda Civic and then bolting on a spoiler on the back and thinking it's amazing.
Hey, now
I got this spoiler from a Broad Street Journal in
Who
1984.
hasn't done that? Come on.
I was about to say, we will not be making fun of my first car.
Congratulations. Did you also think that your Honda Civic was suddenly now so much more powerful? You need that push down to the ground, so in case you go over 40 without the engine blowing up, that your car might fly off. No,
I didn't. I did it for the goal.
But you thought you were cool when you bolted on that carbon fiber extra bullshit on the wheel wells, and you slapped on that spoiler.
Marion doesn't know what he's talking about. What makes a car go faster is when you have a steering wheel cover and custom seat cover.
Yeah. But this is what often psionics feels like, when you're playing your game. You have an okay game engine, and then you slap something onto it that doesn't feel like it's working. And I want it to fit. I want it to feel good, and I don't want to have the Professor Xavier moment of I'm so powerful. I like the only way you can fight him is you put on a dumpster a sand pail over your head that's made out of magic metal of immunity, and now you wander around with a bucket on your head. That is how you're now invincible.
Let's see. Okay, to be fair, Fast and the Furious, the first movie came out my senior year, so I don't want to hear it.
Okay, do you have your 15-speed gearbox?
So when we're talking about psionics, though, we have not mentioned, and this is a completely different, as some people like to put, 50-pound gorilla, which is actually Cthulhu. Because if you think about it, Cthulhu was, yes, D&D had it in there a little bit, but Cthulhu grabbed it and ran with it to the point of, to the nth degree of, okay, you're going to basically be running a 1-shot, maybe a 2-shot, because by the time you're done, you're insane.
Yeah.
And, you've been say again.
I said I feel personally attacked. I've ran so many one-shots of 5th edition Call of Cthulhu that I can help you create a character of any OCC that you want for Call of Cthulhu 5th edition by Chaosium. I know that skill paper very well.
But if you think about it, that is the big bad, in this genre of psionics. That is the big bad, just for the simple fact that all of the old ones and their henchmen and everything else, that is their bread and butter. So yeah.
Could you find this, because you bring up H.P. Lovecraft? You bring up H.P. Lovecraft, you have to bring in Conan, because those two are married to each other in one sense or the other. At least because the author.
Yeah, but Robert E. Howard never wrote a single thing about psionics. I don't think in anything he ever wrote ever.
Nope, he wrote about magic.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
don't get me wrong. Cthulhu himself, not only had magic, but so did eventually the humans that rose up and defeated the old gods, or however that went. So you've got both in that situation, and you can run Call of Cthulhu in any period of Earth history, even into the future, and it works. But you do have some built-in consequences that are far harsher than just about any other game system, I think.
Yeah,
in alerting the biggest of the bad, of the ugliest. It's funny how even in any game system you're running, you say Cthulhu's coming, and everybody runs in terror. You say a Balor, a Pit Fiend, Asmodeus is coming. People are like, okay, we got this, guys. What's up with that?
Instead of Conan, can we play Solomon Kane, please? I want to play a Solomon Kane-based game rather than Conan. That would be nice.
I can maybe point you in the right direction of one coming up soon. I'll be there.
That would be a whole lot more. That's always more fun to me. If we're going to stay in the Robert Howard book series, I would like to.
Yeah, you get to wear pants and actual boots as opposed to.
Hey, pants are overrated. All you need is a good kilt.
Or a loincloth.
Exactly.
I'm not into sandals, guys. Just saying.
I love sandals.
There's no boots.
I love sandals. I own a kilt, but I don't like wearing.
I love wearing my kilt. I actually need to get a new one, but that's besides the point. And you can wear boots with kilts. Come on, people.
Yeah, you can.
But a lot of the psionic type powers that we've come to know, and kind of like what we've said, are baked into the Call of Cthulhu series. And and there are some extreme consequences in that game for the players to, kind of keep everything as quiet as they can, so they don't lose their minds and just open the door, so to speak, kick the door open and go hello and done. Bruce, you said you've run it. What have been some of your experiences with the psionics in the Call of Cthulhu?
There's a module from actually the supplement Cthulhu now has one of the best adventures I've ever read and ever ran, because it was a series of experiments that they would put the player characters into these sensory deprivation tanks, and it would happen to manifest the characters' latent abilities if they had any. And for some odd reason, one of the programmers thought that worshiping Cthulhu was great. So whenever it would connect to the internet back in 1991, it made this sound, and it was like a bad 32 kps hookup, and you had this situation where you have everybody roll your sandy dice, because you see these images whenever you are connected at the mind to each other. And eventually what happened was the Cthulhu was drawing the psi points from the characters. Whoever it was, the high priest, was waiting until he had so many psi points, and he opened up a portal. And it's one of the Cthulhu Now adventures that actually you bring in Cthulhu. And it was a very well done adventure. Instead of like them stopping it or saying, hey, we're going to stop being experiments and, little test monkeys, they kept on going with it, and they just let Cthulhu right on in. And the psionic points that were being drawn away, nobody knew how to use their side character powers. Nobody had any spells. It was like just brand new. You're a college student. You're a blank slate. You've got maybe a 70% computer use. And it was a lot of fun to play, but I ran that adventure twice, and each time I ran it, nobody ever really gets off the roller coaster and says, hey, let's check the structural supports of all these, hills and valleys. Let's go and look at this computer program that we're hooked up to. Let's go look at the code for it. Nobody does that. Nobody does that at all. And if they were to do that, they'd start finding clues as to what's going on. But instead, they're just willing participants in a sleep study because they get an extra $500 that week. I'm like, oh my God, this is so much money. I can't spend it all. Dude, gas is 88 cents a gallon. I will never, ever burn through this. And that's like just one of my many TPKs for Cthulhu that I've ran. I've ran probably about 30 TPKs at Cthulhu tables over about 7 years.
I expect TPKs in Cthulhu.
I've seen the few ones I saw with Shauna when Shauna would watch people play. They all ended the same way. People just died. And I just thought that was the way that system went. The likelihood of you surviving was there. The likelihood of you surviving and being in, same shape that you were when you walked in, not likely.
No, you're going to be in an I Love Me jacket by the end of that adventure. And a lot of times when people are playing with their psychic powers in Cthulhu, they're losing their sanity points because they're altering reality with their head, not realizing that this cost you a little bit. And eventually it costs you so much you start getting phobias or fetishes for it. Just happens.
Yeah.
It's a very well-designed system. It is not a system that's designed for external campaigns to be brought for years upon years. I've heard people say they've got a character for the past, like 7 or 8 sessions. I've never seen that happen. When we ran
I gotta disagree with you, Bruce. Part of that is, H.P. Lovecraft's personal, outlook on life, which was pretty bleak. But I've been in seen many, many, many Call of Cthulhu games where a player's reaching, 7th, 8th, 9th level, and losing, NPCs and a couple of players here and there. But, with the right group, with people who actually, have read more than a handful of H.P. Lovecraft stories, read the books that went to the game, the actual full book, and played it safe and intelligently, it can happen. It's just these days, I think that it's kind of like part of the excitement is just how you're going to die as opposed to actually trying to survive. It's almost like something that's been shoved into the concept of the game that you have to die, or everybody has to die, or you're not actually playing it right.
Is that the DM or is that the player?
No, it's a communal thing that is developed.
The players have to agree they will survive. If the players don't have the will to survive, they're just going to accept however the dice fall wherever they may.
Yep.
But if you go into it, wanting to survive and helping each other out as a team, then you stand a much better chance. It's almost like this sort of communal thing that is seeped into that particular game that you're not going to die, you're not going to live. It's just, are you going to die well?
The game really fits a very nihilistic point of view, and I would like to play a game of Call of Cthulhu / Delta Green / whatever game you want to call it. You want to play it in
Delta
that
Green
setting.
sounds phenomenal.
Because Delta Green is just the X-Files in the '60s dealing with Call of Cthulhu. I'm okay with this. This is a fun game. The problem here is that most players aren't going into those games with the idea of playing Men in Black, X-Files / we are the scary people of the night. Doing really, really dark shit because that's how you have to do it. Because the moment you try to explain to anyone, guys, I know this sounds really weird, but there's a huge, fill in the blank, whatever monster we're encountering that day out there. And most people, I don't believe you. And you're like, you don't have to believe me. Just know that it's true. And most players will, it's weird. Most people don't know how to handle that level of game. They don't. And because honestly, at that point, you're trying to, the concept of I want to live sounds weird to a lot of players for some strange reason. I don't know why.
It's almost a built-in victim mentality, would you say?
Yeah. And I feel sad about that because the idea of actually surviving and doing your job and actually winning shouldn't be a complete alien concept. And the bad part is that if you have even one person in your group who is playing to lose, playing to die, you're going to actually be a detriment to everyone else because that one player sabotages everyone else's ability to actually enjoy a Call of Cthulhu game or a Delta Green game or anything that you're dealing with the mythos, because you're going to end up having that one player who doesn't realize that maybe I shouldn't put my eye up to the astrolabe, or maybe I shouldn't read the book. Maybe the book of scary sounds and weird words made out of flesh of an unknown beast. I shouldn't read that.
It's funny, Kai. Would you say that if people were playing, like, I don't know if there is or isn't an actual X-Files RPG, and you ran them through the same Call of Cthulhu scenario, they would play the game entirely different?
I honestly don't know because I've seen people because the best way I've heard that if you play an X-Files / Men in Black Delta Green style game is that you're not really playing I'm trying to uncover the secrets of the universe. You're more playing government overreach simulator. because technically your job is to protect the world from shit that you don't even understand. So it's like so while everybody else is going to their job, going to school and shopping, here's your team of exterminators showing up, in an unmarked plumbing van, coming out looking like cleaners, and walking in, into a sewers entrance, and people are like, why is the plumber carrying a flamethrower? And we're like, Shoggoss. And everyone else like, I don't understand. And you don't have to, ma'am. There's a gas leak in the area. Meanwhile you're hearing screams. There's flames and smoke coming out of this back alley maintenance hole. And it's like, what are they doing? Cleaning out a problem, or like, what's going on? Ma'am, your child has developed a second connection to an outsider being. Is that bad? Oh yeah, don't worry. Probably solve really soon, ma'am. And it's like, it would be different. The problem is that a lot of people go into a Call of Cthulhu game with the idea of, I am Joe Bob. I am Joe Bob. Local hick. Meanwhile, there's the one guy with a gun who is the sheriff or the deputy, and some other weird guy, and some guy who's smart. The smart guy goes, I must learn knowledge. I have become stupid, and now the world will eat me, and now the universe eats me. The guy with the gun goes insane, proceeds to shoot everybody else in the room because you're all infected by the demon powers. Satan, get back, Satan! Blam, 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 and everybody else is now dead. And then he shoots himself.
Have a good night, Mage's Musings. Be well, sir.
Take care, John.
Good night, everybody.
Conspiracy X was a RPG that I got a hold of in 1995, 96. And it felt a lot like Beyond the Supernatural by Lester Smith. No, Beyond the Supernatural or Chill is what it felt like. It felt like a Lester Smith RPG. It really did. And it had a lot of interesting stuff in it, but the psionic program they had within that game that was baked in seemed like it was begging to be exploited by the GM, because the moment you started using the psionics, it was like, oh, you're making connections. And it's like talking to any, okay, guys, put on your tinfoil hats here. Bruce is going to extrapolate here. If you ever talk to anybody with a certain type of heredity or ethnicity in them, and they talk to them about yoga, and it's part of their national, it's part of their ethnicity. There are some you're going to encounter a minority of people that are like, we don't involve ourselves with yoga. The minority opinion is we don't go with yoga because there are things that we tap into that we don't want to talk to. And it felt like reading Conspiracy X back in 95 was like having conversations with the Hindu and Indian people around my area of San Antonio that are objectively never going to fuck with any sort of yoga, meditation, 7 chakras ever again in their life. They got scared of it. They reached too far and they found the void, the masters of the void. And they were like, no, absolutely not. We're not getting involved with that. There's no way I'm going to talk to something that wants me to do something in servitude to itself. No. And this wasn't like one or two persons. Over the course of 3 years of driving for Uber, I had over 40 different rides where the riders expressed to me a lot of discomfort talking about yoga and the study of oneself. And eventually you get into it where they feel like their body is being used like an antenna, and they're being used as an antenna for extra other entities to reach out and talk to us. And if any of you follow Stephen Greer, ufologist extraordinaire and a yoga practicer on Gaia, he tells you to practice yoga so you can learn how to talk to these otherworldly entities. So I'm just saying, if you want to fuck with this shit, there's your parallel for the real world. But in Conspiracy X, it was already written into the system. The more you mess with the psi, the more you're going to be contacting things, and it's going to be reaching back at you.
Yeah.
Just now, were these people raised by the Waco, Texas, area?
These people were fresh Americans. They were not Americans 6 to 8 years ago.
Okay, these are not. Well, okay.
These are people from India.
Oh,
people from Bali,
I
people
got
that are from where the in East Indies transportation company wants to be at all the time, raking in that gold. This is something that I've encountered more often in my travels than not. And whenever like I meet some stupid white girl, and I'm gonna get hatred for this, I don't care. When I meet a stupid white girl she says she does yoga and she's a yoga instructor, she's a yogi, and she really likes, expressing herself and doing all this stuff. I kind of ask her, I go to her a little bit. I'm like, so is it just really more about you in the pants and, doing the poses? Or is it you do introspection and you do deep dives in yourself, try to figure out the fifth or sixth chakra? Or is it, do you actually talk to something? Is there something that talks back to you? And you want to have the recorder on when they answer. 98% of the time it's about them in the yoga pants. That's how they make their money. They advertise, I'm a yoga instructor, I look good in yoga pants, give me your money, $50 a month. You do 4 sessions a month, it'll be great. Half-hour sessions.
I personally get excited when any girl I'm interested in says she does yoga, but for reasons that we don't need to get into.
I understand this. I get it. I get it. I don't want to get into that too deeply, but I'm going to just say that in here says Bruce has so many Intel satellites using laser tracking to hone in on the location. I can hold a TV dinner out the front door and have it microwave for me. It's happened twice. Anyway, I'll shut up and let you guys talk about non-Conspiracy X, because Conspiracy X, great game. Nobody plays it. There's a couple reasons for that. It does not hold up to long-term play. I hate to say that.
Dumb question, or insert name here. Which way are you trying to ask about me and Psionics? I would like clarification on this question before I answer. Anyway, I'm done. I got someone else.
I am just, once again, I have very little experience in that type of evolving RPG, just because there for a while the answer was just a hot no. There was no questions to be asked. The answer is you can play anything in the book but this. And yoga. That's how we make the money on this channel. We show hot women doing yoga.
Hey, insert name. Come check out the Quantum Show with Nathan Allen this Saturday, and we'll help you out.
They're really good. That show's really good. It really is.
And I agree completely with what Raven McMinn says. She's really a sweetheart, by the way, and been on I believe she's been on the Quantum Show a couple times, at least that I've seen her. She contends, she states, Stephen Greer also contends that all aliens are benevolent, which is very irresponsible and not true. And she's right.
That's my girl.
Free hat,
all
every box, Six Nation.
All right, back to the RP aspect of this.
Let's just put that out there.
So would you say, hypothetically, you're running, does Pathfinder have a variation of it, like first edition?
What the hell are we looking at?
They got it, but they didn't really I didn't go very far into psionics.
All right, I know it was in 3.5.
Because the general opinion is that usually whenever Pathfinder gets around to introduce psionics, it's usually towards the this is also true for WotC. Usually, when they get around to introduce psionics, it's usually towards the tail end of the franchise of the game engine, and they're now just bolting on a new splat book to keep you interested and keep you buying. And here's your new mechanics. Enjoy being what you already have, just a little bit different than what you already were. Yay.
I guess what I'm trying to get around to asking, trying to figure out how to ask, would you prefer that your player who says, hey, I want to try this out, to be a player that you know has been around for a while, has played other classes, other systems, not other systems, other, just been playing the game for a while. Or you get a new kid who's like, I want to try this because I want to be Jean Grey or Professor X, or pick your person that fits the scenario. How many hours of play? How much play would you want them to have before saying yes?
The answer. I'll let somebody answer before me. Or if not,
okay,
I already.
that's really easy. It's just like playing, like, let's say, an IP game. Okay, know the IP. Okay, well, in this case, where the IP would be psionics. If you've got someone who's already into the metaphysical or into, crystals and the paranormal and stuff like that, like in the real world, then they've probably done more research than you. If they've got a want and desire to play a psionic character, they've probably seen all the Scanners movies, X-Files, and all kinds of other things that will help them play the character. It's really going to be about you, and if you have any limitations, like this power is too powerful, or I don't really have room for this sort of a school in my planet to teach you this stuff, or things like that. If the player's ready, build it and they'll come. But if someone just wants to try it out and they know nothing about it, well, say, okay, well, have you read the entire chapter, as it were, on psionics? You're pretty familiar with it, and then have them tell you how they think the mechanics work, in case you haven't read them, and then you can go, that sounds a little OP for what I'm running, or say, well, okay, now let me go read the book, and I'll get back to you, and then we'll talk, outside the actual gaming table, and see if it's a good fit for both of us.
Okay.
I would actually go a little further on that too. I would actually invite that person that, if they're already close to you as is, it's great because you're going to get their opinion on like a magic or side system and be like, hey, would you have a problem with this being in game? I know I don't want it to misrepresent your quote unquote your belief style, but take a look at this and tell me if you think the author was just pulling just shit out of his ass, or if like they actually have an idea of how what you practice. Do you think this has some validity? I'm not saying we need to believe in it. I'm just asking you if you'd be comfortable with me advocating this in a game that we pretend to be part of. And I would get him involved with that aspect, because more than likely Shadow's right. The persons that are into the crystals and into the actual earth and vibrational studies, more often than not, they've put in their time and they've started doing some serious deep dives on things. It would benefit you as a GM to ask them for study materials. If they're not going to invest in like this psi system that this game has, all right, what would be good? What's a good system? Or do you have one? And it would probably be a good idea to do that. I'm just throwing spitballs out here. My wife, she's got her own beliefs. They're not quite in quote unquote parallel to mine. But at the table, whenever I'm running games, she knows that, hey, these things over here, they have validity. In the real world, probably not so much.
So, okay, I get that. I'm just like I said, I've never had a chance to play it, so I figured, I'll throw around some questions, see what you guys' thoughts on. I'll stop.
I think Magic. I think a game that has both Psionics and Magic is kind of a blessing for GMs, because as a GM, I'm familiar with what's been written about Magic in a fictitious sense to make a game world work. I know Palladium's stance on how ley lines affect spells. I know Midgard for Pathfinder. I know how that ley lines can affect magic there with the proper amount of feats. With these certain feats, how you can have a simple spell turn into basically attack nuke. With other game systems out there, Magic really turns into this wonderful sci-fi analogy of like, well, just fucking invent something and say it's fucking magic, motherfucker. And that's pretty much it. Whereas, if you're ever writing a sci-fi story, you're like, man, I really need to have some way for the player characters to be able, the heroes to be able to do this. Oh, well, wait, we invented already. It's this blah, 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 blah. It's the purple MacGuffin, and there we go. We overlap that. We paste that down, nail it in place. All right, the purple MacGuffin allows you to do these things because real world won't let you. But this is sci-fi. Deal with sci-fi, and psionics in sci-fi in psionics and magic together. It makes it almost like a real high magic or real like technomancer-esque type of game, and I don't have a better way to put it, but like Mutant Chronicles, one of the best games I've ever seen where they use both magic and psi together. That game had some very, very small areas of overlap. Like the magic in that game would probably kill you easier than the psionics, from what I saw.
Okay.
But if you study
Mutant Chronicles, buddy.
Oh no, I'll be bringing up Mutant Chronicles in every Tablebreakers from now on, once per episode, just like I bring up the Advanced Bestiary for Biggest Geekus. But I think that Mutant Chronicles does a really good way of blending both of those together because the magic and the psionics both are very much on a personal scale. They're not on a mass or squad level scale. There's not like TAC level nukes or 50-meter spreads of magic bombs. You could craft a spell that does that with that game. Your character will be a slippery pile of goo afterwards and given to Ilion so she can bear hug it and send it back to the hell which she came from. But I wouldn't suggest you do that. I would suggest, if you want to have a game that has both magic and psi, make them differentiate themselves. And you could look at Mutant Chronicles for inspiration as to how those two systems of special effects are different to where you can have them both coexist happily.
So here's a question for you. Here's a question for those who make characters using this mechanic and whatnot. Hypothetically, I want to make Yandu. That's the right way. Yandu, the guy who had the flying arrow. I'm an archer in real life. I like to play archers in games. If you see me on Bruce's channel, I play an archer.
Coming on Saturday.
Yeah. If Jade was here, he'd say all I play was an archer. But I want to play Yandu for whatever reasons. I want to make Yandu. I think I know how to do it using magic, putting with dance or something like that on the arrow if I was doing it via magic. How would you, in your opinion, how would it be done using psionics?
It would be more about the bow becoming an extension of yourself and the sort of quasi-psychic physical training, kind of like a cross between Luke and his lightsaber, and just being, so much practice that your mind and body become so attuned to the activity of drawing, aiming, and shooting. And then maybe at upper levels, possibly gaining, the equivalent of, being able to do what River did in Firefly, where she just bang, 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 shoots 3 guys dead center mass with barely even looking in 0.3 seconds, and just does the math as it was put in Firefly. And then later on, maybe being able to somehow charge the arrow with large amounts of some sort of psychic energy that on impact it did X. But it would be a gradual step process that you'd have to, kind of like a monk in some D&D type games where they're mastering their abilities, and it comes in steps, and you just pace it out to a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there, and then boom, you got your your final super gonzo power.
Have you
okay, step 1, you have to bolt a mohawk looking thing to your head. Step 2, whistle. Step 3, done.
Right, yeah, because he didn't use a bow. He would just whistle, and the arrow did whatever it was magic missile with an arrow, more or less, and whistling. But okay,
I don't even know who you're talking about, but
Guardians of the Galaxy. Did you not see Guardians of the Galaxy?
I don't do Marvel anything.
Okay, never. Okay, Kai.
Okay, so all right, so if you don't have advanced cybernetics and weird shit to go with it, so first off, you were using like a psychic power to like get an idea of detecting like life forms and having a full grasp of the environment around you. So you'd have to, so like a correspondence level of power. It gives you an idea of what you're about to do. So then your next action would be, your next ability would be, you know, setting up the bow, drawing, but you're also focusing the power, your mental powers and psychic energies onto the actual bow. You're actually, if you've and the arrows that you're about to loose. Then you think to yourself, okay, now you're working out probabilities in your head. So you're use a little bit of clairvoyance, predicting in your head angles and how you're going to do this. So when you fire it, you've already plotted in your head a number of possible solutions to impact. Arrow has a penetration value. Then you use like telekinesis to alter the direction of the arrow's trajectory off to the next target, and you're just doing it. It would be a combination of a number of powers all working towards one ability. That's how I would do it. But then again, that's me thinking like a Mage Ascension player. So
personally, I think it worked great. Was that campaign that the one that Baron ran? Exalted. I think I could probably pull it off like Exalted.
Exalted, that'd be like a pretty low that'd be a combo of charms necessary to be able to pull that off. Yeah.
All right, Bruce, you want to add anything to this nonsense thought? Because
I've added a lot here lately.
All right, I was just a question.
If you want me to, I will.
I like to get your opinion. You've seen the movies. You know, I married Poppins, yo.
Okay, listen. Yondu felt like to me he was a character that wasn't really more of magician or more psionic, but more magician. He had kind of like a telekinetic creature, or maybe he would be like, for Pathfinder rights, he would be like a summoner, and his little pet was the arrow. And all he was doing was just whistling Dixie the whole time, watching it skewer Northmen, and just having a fun time. Okay, that's literally what it felt like with Yondu. Yondu himself, a great character, lots of personality. I like that actor. He hasn't been a dirtbag.
Michael Rookie. Michael.
Yeah, Michael. I forget what his last name is. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
but he's been in a lot of stuff I've watched. A lot of stuff that I've watched, and me and Janet will be watching a lot more of him here starting in about a month. But he is a fantastic actor for the choice of Yondu, and I thought with him being the leader of the Reavers, he had a high charisma, and he had an unerring ability to use that little pet arrow of his. Because I can't say it was magic, but it looks like it's magic. It looks like he's just literally almost a song mage, whistling about, and the arrows skewering one after another, after another, after another, after another, after another. And it's great if you're like, I want to see a bunch of 0-level villains die. Well, here's Yondu, and for the next 2 minutes, you're going to hear some pop music from the 1970s. Have fun. That's my addition.
all right.
Truthfully, I feel that Yondu was more of a techno type mage type deal than it actually was anything to do with psionics, because it was linked to the headpiece. So it's more of it's a sound wave controlled weapon, basically, as NZ put. And that's the thing, is that it was controlled with that mohawk looking thing on top of his head. So, and I would say that would actually wind up being more technology than it would actually be psionic.
All right. Okay, I get that. The way I saw it was he was controlling it with his mind and the the Mohawk was just giving him more of a antenna for his.
Well, but if you look at the newest one that just came out, you know, the guy who is second in command now has that strapped to his head.
Yeah,
and is able to do the same thing.
right.
So yeah, I would say that it is.
You're probably
that it
right, and I'm
is-
not going to argue that one. It just when I first saw him in the first and second movie, I'm like, huh, he's controlling the arrow with his mind and using that thing as an antenna, and whistling was his focus. But I get that. I'm not going to say, yeah, well.
You could always look it up.
Yeah.
The Marvel's going to have their actual definition out there somewhere in the universe, you know, and I'm sure online you could, you know, get the definitive answer. But you know, you may not want to do that. You may want to, you know, borrow it and mutate it into your own creation.
Oh God, yes. Since, like I said, I feel like I'm the new guy in this conversation. I'm trying to come up with questions that the panel can answer.
Well,
What's up,
didn't
please?
Baron have a bunch for us?
Yeah, but we kind of diverged from that, like starting right off.
Well, then I'll show up and you can take back over there, Haas.
Go for it, Gary.
All right, so Bruce, we'll start with you. What are some common pitfalls to avoid using magic and psionics together in a tabletop role-playing game, and how can game masters and players ensure that these systems are used in a fun and engaging way for all players?
You have to differentiate them. You really have to be able to differentiate them and give them differing goals for practitioners. You can't give somebody a wizard and say, but if you want to do just like telekinesis stuff, yeah, like you could be like a psionic, but you could just be a telekinetic mage, no big deal. And as a psionicist, you possibly want to have, you know, some definable goals for, like, here's how psionics works better than magic in this campaign world. I don't suggest that you try to blend them because the mathematics will be against you. A lot of people will understand that whenever you're first explaining a game to them, because they're not really knowledgeable about the game. All they see is the facts and figures. So go with the mathematical aspect of it. Show them where each of the characters have their strengths and where they have their pitfalls. I would suggest that having different power sources for your campaign worlds for magic and psi be preferable as well. So don't try to explain arcane energies and then go immediately into, here's Dr. X or here's Professor X, and he tools around in this little wheelchair and he does these things with his mind and he makes people think that he's really powerful. No. You just fucked up. Don't do that. Give clear, concise goals of each. Give people power sources and how they can manipulate things to where they're in their favor. Then show them the math. When I say show them math, show them the rules for how these work. And that's the best way for you to get things off to where you have a game that in the campaign, it might not be in the game system itself, but in your campaign, both of these are baked into the foundation. I don't want to have something happen like what Kai and I have experienced before, because I have a feeling if me and Kai start ranting about psionics and magic, it's going to turn into another Ravenloft scenario, and I don't really want that.
No.
I'm just trying to find time for me and Kai to go to Richards. That's why I don't want another Ravenloft scenario.
Go ahead, Shadow.
Another thing you have to have is limitations. Now, some people are going to argue that one's more powerful than the other. And even though I do the paranormal stuff and all that, I'm going to go with magic is got to be more powerful in the long run. Magic is what breaks all the rules of reality. Now, you can, go with your psionic, notions of that I can change reality with my mind, just on the sheer virtue of my mind. But that's putting so much power, literally godlike power, into the brain of some mortal here from birth. Whereas magic has a cost and requirements and limitations before you could even get to, start casting things like a wish spell, which literally alters reality, right? So you gotta, let your players know that, this is, it's pretty powerful, that being psionics. But I mean, if you want the ultimate power, that's going to be magic, unless, you actually want it to be the other way around. If you want psionics to be the other way around, well, get ready for the fact that that character's probably going to want to marry another psionic, and pretty soon you're going to have the Kwisatz Haderach in your campaign before you can stop it. So set your, pre-game limitation. Which one is the apogee of power? Once you've got that set, you can then, rein it in, because, how many of us actually want to give the wish spell to a player character? Well, now think about giving it to a guy who just has to spend psionic points to make it happen, and now suddenly he's changing your world and turning it into whatever he wants by sheer virtue of the right amount of psionic points or whatever. Wish spell's got a whole bunch of side effects and bad things that can happen when you do it. You don't want to just give somebody basically your world and go, okay, here, you're a DM now. What's happening in my world? I'd really like to know. I spent all those months, if not years, developing this world, and now I just gave it to you.
All right, Kai.
You're welcome, Kai.
What are some of the pitfalls of using both?
I think I just gave a whole bunch.
I'm gonna mute my microphone.
No problem. No,
Then Bugsy forgets.
You just mentioned the Kwisatz Haderach, which most GMs are not ready for. Honestly, if I had a player who was going to do I've seen it. It's fun. Being in a campaign with that is kind of cool. But the downfall really is, one's going to end up getting neglected, or one's going to outshine. I think I touched upon it, but the simple fact of, I'm often going to run into the problem of, no, I think Shadow hit most. I hit most of them pretty clearly. I just know that you have to keep it open. You can't just gate it off to the point where nobody had a chance. Honestly, I don't have anything more I can actually add that Shadow didn't already touch on.
Thanks, man.
No, yeah, no, you hit almost all the downsides, because all I got is slight variations on that, and that's mostly just comes down to application, and I'm going to stumble on this one. I'm the one who's going, I can't follow that one.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, everybody out there, mark this on your calendar.
No, it's the idea that as much as he and I might butt heads, no, he's got a lot of the same conclusions to psionics that I've got, and because it's so hard to balance, and that I so desperately want something good. I want this good experience because I've had one magic psionic campaign that I've been part of that actually works. But that was so bonkers that to go tell that story would be hey, we're going to have an entire day of drinking and talking, and we don't have that here. I have less than 30 more minutes, so yeah, I can't do more than add. So yeah.
And Connell, just from not necessarily a D&D standpoint, but in other games that you've actually played in. I know you said you haven't GM'd a lot with psionics in the mix, but I know you've played in a few.
We're going to use that as a feature for our panel here, Baron. The fact that he's not ran a whole lot of games with psionics, that's a benefit. That's a benefit right there, because we have somebody who literally he's a virgin that could get draped into this shit.
Okay.
I mean, this is a good thing.
Yeah.
What did you see, from the player standpoint as a GM that's not necessarily ran these games, these type of games, what could you see could be some of the pitfalls from the GM perspective to the players in introducing this?
The few times I've seen it actually being played, the guy used not so much the mind magic aspect of it, but the actual moving things around with his mind aspect, where he would pick locks. He would do things of that nature that basically said, sorry, Rogue, you can stay behind because we don't need you. At least for the traditional Rogue. I think it's got to be a balance. I think every player in the campaign has got to understand that the DM's allowing this ability into their campaign. If you don't, you're going to have a lot of other players feel, what's the word I want to use, inadequate. I can see that being a problem. And you said something earlier about dice rolls, like there was a percentage chance that you could. It's a 1D 100, and you got to roll incredibly low.
Well, it's
other games have different. Yeah, AD&D had what we were talking about. Other games have different ways of determining if you have psionics. Rifts has a similar system, but you have a greater chance. Other games, it's just your OCC or your class or your profession. It really depends on the game engine to determine whether or not that character has them or doesn't.
Okay, trying to think of anything else. Rolled of, was it the Masquerade? Somebody played a vampire that had psychic abilities. What?
Yeah, that would be usually considered, what your vampiric disciplines would be very similar to.
I think it has to be all or nothing. And there's just because there was a lot of discourse about why can he do this but I can't in it. So I see it being not a. I think as a player, I'd like my DM to tell me up front, hey, Timmy over there is going to be playing a psychic, and let me give me the opportunity to say, is this something I want to do or something I don't want to do? That's the best answer I have. I think it just could set some discourse at the table.
Okay.
Well, Connell, I wanted to address the thing you said about the one character trying to do other people's jobs. The whole staying in your lane.
Yeah,
a psionic character could easily be,
I'm not watching.
the backup. Let the player know. It's like, look, if you're going to be doing everything the thief is going, you try to be the jack of all trades, Swiss Army knife character. You really got to let the expert try it first, and if they fail, then you come in and pick up the slack, so to speak. Otherwise, you're going to basically ruin the game for everybody. And despite what you might think, we'll probably drop you from the game as opposed to letting you pretty much ruin everything for everybody else. You want to do the jack of all trades thing, you're the backup. Okay, you're the ace up their sleeve. You are not the star doing literally everything. Otherwise, what's the point of me inviting these other 5, 6, 8 other people to the table?
Yep.
That and the guy, I noticed it might just be my perspective of it, but guys who wanted to play that type of class normally were arrogant bastards, because this guy was. He was, I'm the smartest person in the house, the town, and the area. And, I mean, he was smart, but he wasn't that smart.
Yeah, so and sometimes it's not a matter of, actually smart, just knowing the game. If you've got a player who's been playing, for years with a bunch of brand new newbies, it's easy for people to fall into that without necessarily meaning to. Just as like, well, hey, okay, this is how you do it, or whatever. Try to be cool about it and let them know, hey, there's other people at the table. Give them a chance, and if they fail, then you can come in and save the day, so to speak. But let the experts try it first.
All right.
And actually that kind of leads into my next question here. We'll go ahead and start with Kai on this one. How does using psionics in a non-combat encounters, what is the best way for managing the balance?
Yeah, it really does. I'm gonna go pair a little bit of Shadow's thing of, look, you have the ability to subtly, quietly, and with your mind do anything, because that really is the ultimate benefit of playing the psionic character, is that unlike I'm a wizard cleric, I gotta do some incantations, magic runes, loud noises, and weird shit and weird things happen. You're the most subtlest character you are the most power and the most subtlety to your character. Could you take a step back and let somebody else have a go, have some fun? Because otherwise it's going to be a very it really just comes down to, I've seen it. A good psionic character who's not playing World of Darkness, who's playing a Babylon 5, because we mentioned Babylon 5 here, who's playing a Psi Core character. There's a reason why the core had the rules of you needed the gloves, you needed the badge, you needed to declare that you're a Psi character, because if you took the gloves off, took the badge off, and you weren't wearing the uniform, didn't tell anyone, nobody will know that you're out there doing the crazy things that you can do. And watching players who in the back of their heads go, oh, I understand how Bester works, I can pull off that character. I know this because I think about these things all the time. Like I would kill to be able to play a psionic like this, an actual telepath, and the amount of just pure non-combat hijinks that you can get into. And it's just one of those things where it's like, I know you have all these powers, I know you can be subtle about it, I know you can make people do it. Could you please just not dominate everything and take a step back and be subtle? And because the moment you have players not being subtle is the point that things go wrong really fast, and you get hurt feelings, not from me as the game master, but from other people at the table who are sitting here going, what the fuck point do we have to exist because you let somebody just go crazy? And that's not what a lot of people want, and they don't sign up for that. And you just got to make sure that you're doing your job right. I know it sounds cruel, but you kind of almost need to have that. You kind of almost need to have the Psi Core badge that everyone has to wear, because otherwise they're just too. It's almost like having the rogue who's constantly abusing. I use sleight of hand to do everything, so nobody realizes I'm doing anything, and having that one guy in the background, look at you funny, read your thoughts, know what you're doing, know what you ate for breakfast, also pick your pockets and tie your shoelaces together, and I undid your armor, and I also lit fire to the smoke bombs that I know are in your pocket, because I have all these powers, and I can do it, and they can do it all quietly and subtly, and meanwhile everybody else has to go with. So we got to go through interrogation, try to get information gathering. Meanwhile, you have your psionic character, who's the psychop, who's walking around going, okay, I already know everything. Everybody else kind of goes, well, shit. And since most games don't have a good defense against it, you're just watching these non-combat. There's so many ways to have it be abusable, unless you have some kind of way of making it stoppable, noticeable or stoppable. But because most psionics are simply badly drawn ripples and whoop, 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 magic sound effects, honestly, most people won't even realize you're doing it. Aquaman using his talk to fish powers, or how 90s cartoons drew Xavier in the cartoons using his badly drawn ripple effects, and he's like, I must concentrate and get information. Meanwhile, we've all seen the episode of Babylon 5 where it literally is a guy who's just quietly going, okay, I already know what's going on in that room. And everyone goes, you're like invading people's personal space. And no, I'm invading normals' minds. They're different. They're not humans. They're not nearly as good as, and you get to weird ethics problems. And I want to skew away from that one or go straight into it. I have no problems, but most people do. So,
all right, Bruce, how do you, in non-combat encounters, how do you keep the balance?
Well, typically with psionics, with the campaigns I run, psionics are something you can do with short time. Like if you need less than 30 minutes of prep time, psionics are a good thing. So if you've got a psionicist on the ground with you going into an area, usually like people will want to use the psionicist to like kind of view things out. And that's where you can impart some narrative, environmental narratives into the campaign. You can use that. If they don't have a rush going on, they can actually use magic, so they can actually get a little bit more information out of it. Because a lot of times, psionics will only allow you to have so much information, and then after that, the power will start to tax the user. He'll start, having nosebleeds and such. Whereas magic can allow you to do, more impressive stuff. Like if you have a scrying pool or crystal ball, you get 3 out of 5 senses, not touch, not smell. But you can at least figure out a little bit more than what you had with psionics. I would recommend, if you don't have time, to have a psionicist to kind of help you out with things. But in a non-combat encounter, in an event where you're using either or, as a GM, you got to operate to the strengths of whatever they're using, and you have to make that the most dominant thing in this play. You have to make that the most dominant effect going on right now as they're trying to either communicate or parlay or otherwise have no bloodshed at the end of said encounter. So psionics can come into play a lot, whereas magic primarily is something that's more ritualistic, something that's more nuanced for most endeavors. I do recommend that a GM kind of evaluate what spells and powers the player characters have going into an encounter. That way, you know how to prepare. Like, what's the party going to do? What are they going to do within the first 2 minutes? And they're starting to reconnoiter this area. What are they going to try to do to make themselves more appealing for non-combat environments? With all these baboons running around this island, I don't want to see, a bunch of characters that are like, "Hey, we're 9th level finally," and then they get torn to shreds by the simians on the Isle. That would be disheartening. I would love to do that to a party of players though that think they're bad shit. We hit name level, nothing can fuck with us. And then like they get on the island and a bunch of orange orangutans with huge fangs and tusks just rip them apart to shreds because the party didn't, try to figure out what was the dominant item on the Isle or what was the main sort of resistance or encounter that you could have here. I recommend that a DM, whenever you're doing these things, if somebody's using magic to try to foretell what's going on, don't shy away from the grotesque and the gross stuff. If your players have a bad tendency to let, like, say, Greg do the talking for the party, and after about 5 or 10 seconds, it's either dice rolls or I worship you, be happy to describe the party being ripped to shreds by the orangutans. It's going to help them out. I would recommend that. I would recommend not veering away from the grotesque things that make your players' stomachs churn. Okay, don't be afraid to make your players uncomfortable either, because you don't want them to think that they are running the show. You don't want to give them that feeling at all, because that's an illusion you should rip right out of their play style. They should be trying to tiptoe around things and be peaceful. And we're not here to screw up the environment. We're not here to set off nuke fireballs. We're here to be happy-go-lucky. What's the most dominant force on the island? Here's some bananas. Don't kill us, please. That's kind of how I want my tables to be performing.
All right. Oh yeah, definitely. And all the Binks Raiders definitely want to welcome you all in. Thank you much. I definitely appreciate it. Also, so Shadow, how do you keep the balance in non-combat type situations?
Well, that's maybe where the Psionic is going to excel, and let them lean into it. Okay, maybe they're gonna be the guy, the face guy, from A team or what have you. It's like, okay, here's your niche in the group. You've got the psionic abilities, so let's have you do the talking kind of thing. Unless there's somebody else who's far better at it, because of let's say like a natural higher charisma score, as opposed to just imposing their will. Let them lean into their strong suit, but remind them, maybe pick a specialty and focus on that, because most games aren't going to let your psionic be able to do everything. And the old expression, jack of all trades, master of none. You could, as a psionic, literally end up, being the weakest link, because you spread yourself so thin. Pick a focus, pick something that you want to be the best at, and lean into your strongest suit, and find out what the players lack, the player group is lacking, and fill that spot. Make yourself, remind the player, I should say, to make themselves invaluable, but not overbearing and, like we've all said before, trying to, dominate the entire game. It's not going to be about you. Let them know that. Because Psionics, that's one thing they usually aren't great at, is combat. Sure, they could do the Darth Vader, throwing things at you, or some other things. But eventually, the nosebleeds, the headaches, they're going to put you at the back of the party, and you're sitting there, wheezing and dizzy and all that. So pick your focus and stick with it.
Yeah.
Okay. So Connell, with you, once again, you have not ran any of these type of situations, but
I feel like I should apologize.
No. This is good, because
it's a good test control subject.
Exactly. So what could you see ways in order to keep balance in the non-player character, or the in non-combat type situations with NPCs, in order to keep the balance for not only for you, but for your players at your table once you introduce this?
Well, in Shadow's one shot he did, where I guess Mike was playing some kind of psychotic.
Well, that too.
Psionic character. I thought it was interesting how he wasn't the strongest person at the table by no stretch of the imagination. But he had the ability to, what's the word I'm looking for? He had so many times a day that he could, look into the future per se. I don't know if that counts as.
That is,
Does it count?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was his gig.
So he has X amount of times he can tap into to see 15 seconds or 10 seconds in the future. Because honestly, I love that power, especially playing poker. But it came with a cost, and I thought having a cost, there being some kind of juice to the squeeze, is a good way to balance it out. Because if he could do it, 100 times a day, then there is no reason for anybody else at the party. He could just say, hey guys, when we got off the ship for our vacation, hey, we got to go. We can't stay here, you know. So it gave the rest of the party the ability to actually do things. And that's kind of what you guys have been going on, is letting the other players play. And if you are an ability where you're all powerful in the sense that you can tell the future, or you know, make a bank ATM spit out money and be a billionaire, what's the point? What's the point of the rest of the party? So a balance is, to me, is to tell that player he has a set number of times, like you do with spellcast, a set number of times you can do that particular that trick a day. I think that is a great balance. So that is, using shadows one shot. That's probably the best example I have.
Okay. So we are coming to the end here because we know
we got time for your answer.
What about? Well, with Kai's getting ready to turn into a pumpkin.
No, you can answer still. I'm good for a couple more minutes.
Yeah, for me then, what it would be to help limit the interactions is there's a few things that you can do as a GM. Number one, you can actually raise the DCs to kind of match, some kind of, because, especially if they're going into, let's say, the weaponsmith, to get something. Weaponsmith deals with a lot of travelers, and maybe he's dealt with stuff like this before. So maybe he's got some maybe some gear that, give him a little bit of a bump against it. Whereas, where persuasion, maybe a little bit easier. Scale the DCs to be equal to keep that balance in there. In order to keep everything on, more of a level playing field. Also, when you're having those interactions, maybe have it to where, if they are, I know Mar Hockman put in earlier that, read everybody's mind, within like a 100-mile radius or something along those lines. Well, maybe, taking in all that information, that's going to hurt. Information overload is a thing because, look at, at schools and things along those lines. They give the information in small snippets as opposed to, throwing everything out there at once because it becomes confusing, disorienting. That could theoretically be a way of, you can definitely do this, but you're going to need a few days to recover and your head's going to really hurt. It's not necessarily, the head's going to explode or anything like that, but literally you need to process that information, in order to keep it down to, a small finite, even somebody's, quote unquote mind. Maybe you limit it to where they can only pick up surface slots. You can make the powers fit your setting. And, whereas, the powers say, I have, phenomenal cosmic powers in space. That's where you have to kind of put it when you're looking at the overall of the psionics, because if you look at it, that is also what happens with magic. Yes, you can do amazing things with magic, but there's a small finite box that magic works in, and you can do roughly the same thing. So we have come to, basically come to the last of our role here. So, so I think, we'll kind of go around, see what everyone has coming up this week. We'll go ahead and start with Bruce. Bruce, what have you got coming up this week? Except for head explosions.
Having too much fun with the scanners there. Tomorrow night, will not be a shit show. I'll probably be over at Max's Legion of Myth Randos and enjoying time with my friends there. But Saturday, let's talk about BBGC. You know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about these guys. There's going to be a lot of these on the table. And I'm looking forward to seeing Connell come back to us. Looking forward to it, Connell. We're waiting
Hey, Bruce,
on you.
show that figure again, if you would. Yes.
Every campaign I'm in right now, we're dealing with fire giants. I don't know how the universe lined up that way, but out of the 4 campaigns I'm in, all of them are dealing with freaking fire giants. Like, what the actual fuck?
Yeah, that damn good paint job on that, Bruce. Good job.
I'm okay. It's I'm getting better. Here's some other lovelies that we got. Oh yeah. I love Reaper miniatures, guys.
I get, Mr. Miyagi, quote running through my head. Best offense, don't be there.
That's the outermost layer of the onion of defense. So,
All right, Shadow, what do you get? Oh, go ahead, Bruce.
I'm kind of sad I didn't get a chance to paint more because I've got more fire giants to do.
I'm not.
That's okay. Unpainted miniatures can go on the table too. It's all right.
oh yeah.
Oh my god.
Shadow, what do you got coming up this weekend? This next week?
Friday, I'm in a game with Bo from Bo Paints Minis, a really good game. And Saturday, I will be doing the Sci-Fi Shadow Chat. This week, we'll be talking about space exploration, strange new world, and the game Stellaris that my son has recently become addicted to. Real
Good
quick,
game.
while we were having this discussion, I assembled this multi-part model from Shadows of Brimstone. It's a snake man on some sort of pterodactyl-looking thing. I cannot wait to get to use this in gameplay. This is a phenomenal Aztecian-looking model that I just can't wait to actually get to paint once it cools off here in my neck of the woods, because it's still just too hot to paint. And then next week, thanks to Kai, I will be showing off something from days gone by, something most people haven't seen. It's an old game product that I've been holding on to for decades now. And then
Awesome.
I think Wednesday or Thursday, I'm going to be over on 1-2 Radio with Raven McMinn. We'll be doing another paranormal show together. And, of course, I'll be doing a paranormal show with our good friend Nathan Allen over on the Quantum Show. Other than that, really kind of getting ready for Jackie to go back to school. Of course, we'll be hanging out with Hungar and hopefully DM James Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings. Hope to see you guys all there. That's it. I hope you guys all have a great weekend, though. It looks like the weather's going to get a little bit nicer, and then it's going to get cold. So let's enjoy.
All right, Connell, what do you got? What do you got going on for us?
Oh, Friday, I don't know quite yet. I might just be watching, lurking around in Max's show. I might do a show of my own. Don't quite know. I know I'll be harassing Jade and a few other friends I have that are getting on, and then didn't take me, the fuckers. Not that I could afford it. Then Sunday. It might be. I got to talk to the rest of the crew, but it might have to start an hour later than I wanted it to, just because I have an errand that I cannot get out of. I tried, and I just got the no just a few minutes ago. Or we might not be doing it at all. But when we do it, we'll be talking about a time traveling movie with a grumpy guy who gives the ability of, one would say, companions, a phone booth that goes throughout time. Now, I might be thinking of one movie, you might be thinking of the other movie, but come hang out with us Sunday, or possibly, unfortunately, maybe next Sunday, and we'll all find out the same answer together. And that's what I got going on. As Bruce says, he's going to squash me in his campaign. But like Frank Sinatra's daughter once said, these boots are meant for walking. So I just might have to walk myself out of that counter in a poof kind of way.
I forgot, folks. Sunday night, right after Connell's show, or maybe not, my son and I are giving away a bunch of sealed box miniature sets, and I forgot to shout that out. And if you haven't seen our announcement show, you got to go watch it in order to qualify. It'll be your last hearing of it from me. I'm not gonna, bore people with it, but I totally spaced, and I'd be really remiss if I didn't give you guys one last chance to qualify.
Alrighty. Question for Bruce and Kai: is there going to be a part 4 or volume 4 of Kai's musings next week?
I love that show.
Yeah, I don't see why we should stop.
Okay, no. The reason I was asking because I was looking at the numbers, and the numbers are. Oh, actually, it's not bad. To be honest with you, there's actually quite a few people that watch that. So those of you that are interested in Bruce's Discord, I has his own little rant channel in there where he puts all of his ideas and just kind of just throws everything out there, and people comment back to him, and it's a good way to pick Kai's brain if you're going to pick his brain about certain things.
I recommend
it's a great way to do so. Yeah, definitely.
I really recommend picking Kai's brain.
And you can go back on either Bruce's channel or Kai's channel and watch those Kai's musings, volume 1, 2, and 3.
Mostly just us shit the shit and having cool ideas. But feel free to add them. I add questions or ideas. I like feedback.
There you go. Man has spoken.
If you like the Kai's musings, do me a favor and comment. We'll be happy to read comments. Even if they're critical comments, we'll be happy to read them, and we defend our stances, or kind of like ask you, can you extrapolate? Here's some ideas we have. Love to do that.
Yeah.
Right. And I've been doing something slightly different with my channel. I've been doing a little bit more video gaming as opposed to the TTRPG gaming. And definitely want to thank those who are subscribed, who are definitely watching that on the YouTube side. Also with the got a couple more episodes of Brotato, and then I'm going to be doing over the weekend. I've got a couple of newer games that I've got my hands on. So definitely make sure you check those out. And have all kinds of fun. So everyone, we definitely want to thank you for taking a little bit of your time to listen to us talk about something that we absolutely love, which is tabletop role-playing games, and all the destinations that this is going to. We definitely want to thank you folks for tuning in. Anybody else have anything to say in the closing, except for Connell, because he always comes up with something really weird?
Just have a great weekend, folks.
Yeah, guys, we're going to come back to this
fun.
topic next week, and we're going to keep going on it because there's a lot of questions that I do have.
You didn't get to?
Yeah, we didn't get to those at all, and that's why we're going to do this for 3 weeks. We want to hash this out, and we've got some other plans in the future. One of them is doing the Crafting Gamer, running his test bed over here.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at that, that's a really neat little system. Can't wait to hear what Jade has to say on it. But I'm going to shut up now, and I thank you all for spending your time with us. Go on ahead, guys. If you want to help us, get on out.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.